Resentment is like a chain that binds us to the past, dragging us down long after the moment has passed. It's exhausting, isn't it? We've all felt it, whether it's towards a friend who betrayed our trust, a colleague who took credit for our work, or even a stranger who slighted us in some small, nagging way. Yet, as Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic philosopher, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Stoicism reminds us that we can break free from these emotional chains by shifting our focus inward, rather than letting others control our peace of mind. In this video, we'll explore how the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy can help you let go of resentment for good. Together, we'll uncover key principles that will not only transform the way you see those painful experiences, but also empower you to reclaim your serenity. Let's begin this journey to a lighter, freer state of mind. Think back to a time when someone let you down, a friend who promised to show up but didn't, a boss who unfairly criticized you, or even a stranger who cut in line. Maybe you still feel a pang of anger just thinking about it. That's resentment. It's the mental replay of past wrongs, the simmering feeling that they should have acted differently. But here's the hard truth. Holding on to resentment doesn't change what happened, and it certainly doesn't punish the other person. Instead, it's you who carries the weight of it day after day, moment after moment. The Stoics understood this all too well and saw resentment for what it really is: a destructive emotion that harms the one who holds it far more than the one who caused it. In Stoic philosophy, resentment often arises from a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of control. One of the most profound teachings comes from Epictetus, who said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." Let's break that down. According to the Stoics, the only things truly within our control are our thoughts, choices, and actions. Everything else, whether it's the behavior of others, the outcomes of our efforts, or random events in the world, lies entirely outside our control. When we expect people or events to align perfectly with our desires, we set ourselves up for disappointment and resentment. That's just disappointment that we've allowed to fester. Take a moment to think about it. When we resent someone, we're essentially saying they should have acted differently. But can we really control how others behave? No, we can't. People act according to their own nature, their own priorities, and their own understanding of the world. Just as we don't always meet others' expectations, they won't always meet ours. Yet, instead of accepting this reality, we cling to that misplaced expectation, replaying the offense in our minds, fueling our anger, and letting it drain our peace. Imagine you're holding a hot coal in your hand, intending to throw it at the person who wronged you. The hotter it gets, the more it burns, but you don't let go, convinced it will hurt them more if you hold onto it just a little longer. This is the nature of resentment. The Stoics teach us that the only way to stop the pain is to release the coal. And here's the empowering part: letting go doesn't depend on someone else's apology or behavior. The decision to release resentment is entirely within your control. It's not about excusing bad behavior or pretending nothing happened. Instead, it's about recognizing that their actions are outside your influence while your inner peace is not. By shifting your focus inward toward your thoughts and reactions, you reclaim the power that resentment takes from you. When you choose not to dwell on what they did or what they didn't do, you free yourself from the emotional burden. Here's a question to ask yourself: is it worth sacrificing your peace of mind over something that isn't in your control? When you frame it that way, the answer often becomes clear. Through this Stoic perspective, you can begin to see resentment not as a permanent fixture in your life, but as something within your power to release. It's not easy, but as the Stoics would say, nothing truly worthwhile ever is. So, are you ready to let go? Let's explore how to take those first steps. At the heart of Stoicism lies a powerful principle called the Dichotomy of Control. It's a deceptively simple but profoundly transformative idea. Some things are within our control and some things are not. Epictetus, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: there are things which are within our power and there are things which are beyond our power. Now, it sounds straightforward, doesn't it? But when you really start to apply this idea to your everyday life, especially when dealing with resentment, you begin to see just how much mental energy we waste on things we can't change. Let's break it down. What's within our control? The Stoics tell us it's our thoughts, our choices, our actions, and our attitudes. What's not within our control? Pretty much everything else: other people's decisions, their opinions, the outcomes of events, even the weather. Think about it. You can't control whether someone at work undermines you. You can't control whether a loved one says hurtful things in the heat of an argument. And you certainly can't go back in time and undo a betrayal or disappointment. What is within your control, however, is how you choose to respond. You decide whether to stay stuck in a cycle of bitterness or to move forward with clarity and intention. Here's a simple way to see this principle in action. Imagine a close friend promises to help you with something important. It could be moving into a new apartment or preparing for a big project. You're counting on them, but when the day comes, they flake out completely, leaving you to manage on your own. Naturally, you feel hurt and frustrated. A part of you might think, why did they do this to me? They should have been there. But pause for a moment, ask yourself, what part of this situation is actually within your control? Can you control their decision to cancel at the last minute? No, that's done. What you can control is your response, whether you stay stuck resenting their behavior or choose to accept it and move forward. This is the beauty of the dichotomy of control. It gives you an anchor in moments of emotional chaos. When you shift your focus to what's within your control, you reclaim your power. Instead of being at the mercy of someone else's actions, you turn inward to shape your own thoughts and choices. Resentment thrives on the illusion that we can or should control things outside of ourselves. By embracing the dichotomy of control, you disrupt that illusion and make space for clarity and peace. Reflect on this for a moment. What aspects of your current resentment stem from things you cannot change? Is it someone else's behavior, their choices? The way events unfolded, when you take a step back and identify what's truly in your hands, you'll often find that resentment begins to loosen its grip. You might not like what happened, but you don't have to let it define your emotional state. So, the next time you feel resentment bubbling up, try this. Pause and ask yourself, am I focusing on something that's beyond my control? If the answer is yes, remind yourself that it's not your battle to fight. Instead, center your energy on what you can control: your mindset, your next steps, and your ability to let go. By practicing this shift in perspective, you'll not only free yourself from the weight of resentment, but also begin to live with greater intention and inner strength. What if the event that caused your resentment didn't inherently harm you? It's an intriguing question, isn't it? In Stoicism, one of the core teachings is that external events themselves are neutral. They aren't good or bad, they simply are asterisk. It's our interpretation, the meaning we assign to those events, that gives them power over us. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, the same situation that stirs deep resentment in one person might not faze another. The difference lies not in the event itself, but in how we perceive and interpret it. To understand this better, let's think about an everyday example. Imagine you're driving to work and someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction might be anger, your heart races, you grip the wheel tighter, and perhaps you even yell at the driver even though they can't hear you. Why? Because in that moment you interpret their action as a personal insult, as if their behavior was an attack directed at you. But let's pause for a second. What if you reframed that situation? Instead of assuming malicious intent, what if you considered the possibility that they didn't even see you? Maybe they're distracted because they're running late for an important meeting or dealing with a personal crisis. Does that change how you feel about it? Even if it doesn't excuse the behavior, viewing it through a neutral lens can soften the emotional sting. The Stoics teach us that when we let external events dictate our emotional state, we hand over our peace of mind to forces beyond our control. Resentment is born from the belief that something external has wronged us in a way that defines our reality. But what if we saw these events as neutral, neither good nor bad, until we decide what meaning to give them? By recognizing that these events lack inherent harm or benefit, we reclaim the power to choose how we respond. Take another example. Let's say a colleague criticizes your work during a meeting. You might immediately feel hurt, thinking they're trying to undermine or embarrass you. But what if you stepped back and questioned your interpretation? Could it be that their comments weren't about you personally, but about the work itself? Or perhaps they were struggling to communicate effectively and came across harsher than they intended. Even in the rare case where their intent was negative, does their opinion truly harm you, or is it your interpretation of their words that's causing the pain? Marcus Aurelius reminds us in his Meditations that events are like objects passing through our perception. They cannot touch our soul or our inner self unless we allow them to. Resentment arises when we attach judgment to these events, when we label them as unfair, unjust, or harmful. But if we strip away those judgments, what's left? Just the event in its simplest neutral form. And in that neutrality, there is freedom from anger, bitterness, and the exhausting cycle of replaying the wrong in our minds. Here's something you can try. The next time you find yourself dwelling on a moment of resentment, pause and ask yourself, what is the bare fact of what happened without any judgment? Then ask, am I imposing a narrative on this event that's making it feel worse than it is? This practice, rooted in Stoic thought, can help you begin to reframe your experiences and loosen the grip of resentment. When we embrace the neutrality of external events, we stop living at the mercy of our interpretations. Instead, we gain clarity, resilience, and the ability to respond with wisdom rather than emotion. By mastering this mindset, we can start to let go of resentment and live with a sense of calm, no matter what life throws at us. Resentment often thrives on the idea that someone has wronged us intentionally, with full awareness of how their actions would hurt. But what if we pause to consider a different perspective? What if instead of assuming malice or neglect, we recognize that people act based on their own perceptions, struggles, and limitations? The Stoics understood that human behavior is shaped by countless factors, some visible, others hidden, and that by cultivating empathy, we can loosen the grip of resentment. As Seneca wisely wrote, we are all sinners. If you are angry at your neighbor today, tomorrow you may find yourself guilty of the same fault. This reminder of our shared human fallibility is key to unlocking forgiveness and letting go of the bitterness that resentment creates. Think about a time when someone hurt or disappointed you. Maybe they spoke rudely, broke a promise, or failed to support you when you needed them most. It's natural to feel betrayed in these moments, but have you ever stopped to ask, what might they have been going through at that time? What pressures, fears, or blind spots could have led to their actions? The Stoics encourage us to take this step back and view the situation through the lens of the other person's humanity. After all, every one of us is navigating life with our own struggles, imperfections, and limited understanding. By acknowledging this, we can begin to soften our judgments and reduce the resentment we feel. To make this practice more tangible, let's explore a practical Stoic approach you can try. Whenever you find yourself holding onto resentment, take a moment to imagine the situation from the other person's point of view. Picture their life and their perspective. What might they have been dealing with that day? Perhaps they were overwhelmed with stress, distracted by personal problems, or acting out of ignorance rather than intent. This exercise isn't about excusing bad behavior, but about shifting your focus from blame to understanding. It reminds you that most people don't set out to harm others. They are often acting according to their own fears, aspirations, or misjudgments. For example, imagine you're upset with a friend who didn't show up to an important event. Your initial reaction might be anger, assuming they were careless or didn't value your relationship. But when you pause to consider their perspective, you might discover that they had a family emergency, were struggling with anxiety, or simply made a mistake. Even if you don't know the full story, recognizing that their actions were likely shaped by factors outside their control can help you release the resentment faster than clinging to assumptions of malice. Seneca reminds us that we, too, are capable of hurting others, often unintentionally. He encourages us to remember our own moments of weakness and error, asking, why do we not judge our own deeds in the same spirit of tolerance as those of others? This humility allows us to see that forgiveness isn't just for the benefit of others. It's a gift we give to ourselves. When we forgive, or at least let go of the desire to punish someone in our minds, we free ourselves from carrying the weight of anger and frustration. Empathy, in this sense, becomes a powerful antidote to resentment. It transforms how we interpret others' actions, reminding us that we're all imperfect beings trying to navigate a complex world. So the next time you find resentment bubbling up, try this. Consciously ask yourself, what might have been influencing their behavior? What would this situation look like if I saw it from their perspective? This simple practice can open the door to greater understanding, making it easier to release the emotional burden of bitterness. By cultivating empathy, we align ourselves with the Stoic ideal of living harmoniously with others. We learn to accept human fallibility not as an excuse for harmful actions, but as a reality of our shared experience. In doing so, we take a step closer to emotional freedom, leaving resentment behind and embracing a mindset rooted in compassion and clarity. Life is short. It's a phrase we've all heard before, but have you ever truly sat with it, let it sink in? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? The Stoics believed that reflecting on the brevity of life wasn't morbid but incredibly freeing, because when you fully grasp how limited your time is, you stop wasting it on things that don't truly matter. And when it comes to resentment, there's one undeniable truth. It steals your time, your energy, and your focus, and it gives you nothing in return. Think about it. How many hours of your life have you spent replaying a moment of hurt in your mind? How much precious emotional energy have you poured into anger over something that can't be undone? Resentment keeps us stuck in the past while life is always moving forward. But here's the thing, time is the one resource we can never get back. The Stoics often meditated on the inevitability of death, not to scare themselves, but to remind themselves of what truly matters. Seneca captured this beautifully when he said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And isn't resentment one of the biggest wastes of all?" Imagine you're holding a cup of water. That water represents your time on earth, finite, irreplaceable. Every moment spent dwelling on what someone did wrong to you is like spilling a bit of that water onto the ground. It's gone, and no amount of effort can put it back into the cup. Now, reflect on this. How much of your limited time do you want to spend nurturing resentment? Is it worth sacrificing your peace today, right now, for something that's already behind you? Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's important and to let go of what isn't. When viewed through the lens of mortality, so many of the grievances we hold onto simply don't deserve the energy we give them. That rude comment from a stranger, the friend who forgot to call you back, the colleague who didn't give you credit, ask yourself, will these things matter in a year? In 5 years, on your deathbed, will you look back and think, I wish I had held onto that resentment longer? The answer is almost always no. The awareness of life's transience invites us to prioritize what truly matters: moments of connection, kindness, learning, and growth. Resentment doesn't add to any of these. It shuts us off from the present, consuming mental and emotional space that could be spent far more meaningfully. Instead of holding onto a grudge, imagine what that time could be used for. A conversation with a loved one, a walk in the fresh air, pursuing a goal that lights you up. All of these things bring value to your short time here. Resentment, by contrast, only takes. Here's a reflective question to consider. If today were your last day, would this resentment still feel important? Probably not. By bringing your focus back to the temporality of life, you can see resentment for what it really is: a distraction, a thief of the time you could be spending truly living. The Stoics encourage us to return again and again to this perspective, not to ignore the challenges of life, but to reframe them. So, the next time you feel resentment rising, pause and ask yourself, is this how I want to spend my limited time? By grounding yourself in the Stoic understanding of life's brevity, you'll find it easier to let go of the trivial and make space for the things that truly matter. Life is fleeting, and that's exactly why we shouldn't waste another moment carrying unnecessary burdens. Letting go isn't just about forgiving others, it's about valuing your own time enough to move forward. When we're caught in the grip of resentment, it's easy to feel like our emotions are in the driver's seat, steering us down a path of anger, frustration, or even bitterness. But Stoicism offers us an invaluable tool to regain control: our capacity for reason. The Stoics believed that reason is what sets us apart as humans. It's our ability to think clearly, to assess situations objectively, and most importantly, to guide ourselves away from destructive emotions like resentment. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: the mind that is anxious about the future is unhappy in the present. In other words, emotions like resentment often lead us to dwell on things that don't serve us, clouding our ability to live in the moment. But through reason, we can break free from this cycle. Let's look at how this plays out in everyday life. Imagine someone cuts in front of you in a long line at the coffee shop. Your initial reaction might be a flare of irritation, maybe even a flash of resentment as you mentally label that person as selfish or rude. This is your emotional impulse kicking in, and it happens almost instantly. But if you pause and apply reason, the situation starts to look different. Perhaps you consider that they didn't realize there was a line, or maybe they're in a rush because of an emergency. Even if their behavior was thoughtless, what do you gain by holding onto that irritation? Nothing, except more stress for yourself. Using reason to evaluate the situation allows you to see it in a clearer, more balanced way, and with that clarity, the resentment dissolves. The Stoics encouraged us to treat our emotions like anything else in life, something that can and should be managed with care. Seneca advised that we approach our emotions like a judge weighing evidence, not reacting impulsively, but stepping back to analyze the situation calmly. He said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." Resentment often follows this same pattern. We assume the worst about someone's intentions or replay the offense in our minds, magnifying the harm. But when we confront these feelings with reason, we begin to see them for what they really are: exaggerated responses that keep us stuck in negativity. Here's a simple exercise you can try the next time you feel resentment creeping in. Start by identifying your immediate emotional impulse. What's the first thing you feel? Maybe it's anger, frustration, or disappointment. Then pause and ask yourself, what's the rational way to interpret this situation? What's the bigger picture? Take a few deep breaths and challenge yourself to list alternative explanations for what happened. Finally, decide how you want to respond, not based on that initial surge of emotion, but based on reason. Practice this often, and you'll find that over time, you become less reactive and more deliberate in how you handle situations that might otherwise lead to resentment. Let's take another example. Perhaps a colleague at work takes credit for an idea that you contributed. Your emotional response might be immediate frustration, maybe even a sense of betrayal. But by engaging your rational mind, you can take a broader view. Ask yourself, was this intentional, or could it have been a misunderstanding? Even if it was deliberate, what's the most productive way to address it? Dwelling in resentment doesn't resolve the issue. Taking rational, constructive action does. Maybe that means having a calm, honest conversation with your colleague, or simply letting it go if the situation doesn't warrant further energy. Either way, reason enables you to make a choice that aligns with your values and keeps you in control. The beauty of reason is that it doesn't suppress your emotions. Instead, it helps you understand them and act wisely despite them. By practicing this skill, you're not just managing resentment, you're cultivating emotional resilience and reclaiming your peace of mind. Resentment loses its power when we approach it with logic. And as the Stoics remind us, every challenge is an opportunity to strengthen our ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. The question to ask yourself is, do I want to let my emotions dictate my actions, or will I choose to rise above them with reason? The choice, as always, is yours. Have you ever been so consumed by resentment that it feels like the emotion has taken over your entire mind? Maybe you replay the situation over and over, each time feeling the same frustration, anger, or hurt as if it just happened. It's overwhelming, isn't it? It's easy to believe that these emotions are who we are in that moment, that they're part of us, unshakable and permanent. But what if there was a way to take a step back from those feelings, to observe them without judgment, almost as if they were happening outside of you? This is where the Stoic practice of cognitive distancing comes into play. Cognitive distancing is about creating space between you and your emotions. It's recognizing that you are not your feelings, and that emotions like resentment are temporary reactions, not defining features of your identity. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. What he's suggesting is that while we can't control the actions of others or the events of the world, we can control how we choose to relate to our thoughts and feelings. Instead of being swept away by resentment, Stoicism teaches us to observe it, dissect it, and ultimately release it. Let's explore how this works with a relatable example. Imagine a close friend forgets your birthday. You saw their social media post that morning, so you know they didn't forget the date entirely. They must have just overlooked sending you a message or calling. At first, resentment floods in. How could they forget? I always remember their birthday. You feel unappreciated or even hurt. These feelings are normal, but instead of reacting impulsively, cognitive distancing invites you to pause and objectively observe what's happening in your mind. Start by mentally stepping back and framing your thoughts with detachment. One method the Stoics often suggest is to talk to yourself in the third person. Instead of saying, "I'm so hurt and betrayed," try, "I notice that I'm feeling hurt and betrayed." This small shift creates a sense of separation between you and the emotion. It's no longer "I am resentful," as if resentment defines you. It's "I'm experiencing resentment right now," as if it's a temporary guest in your mind. This subtle reframing can immediately lessen the intensity of your feelings because it reminds you that emotions, while powerful, are not permanent. Next, try to observe the emotion with curiosity instead of judgment. What is this resentment trying to tell you? Maybe it's a signal that your friendship feels imbalanced, or perhaps you've attached certain expectations to your friend's behavior. You don't need to act on these thoughts right away. Simply acknowledging them with a calm, detached mindset can help you regain clarity. Marcus Aurelius himself practiced this, often reminding himself to examine his thoughts as if he were looking at them from a distance. By observing them calmly, he could decide whether they were helpful or worth letting go. Another powerful exercise is to imagine your resentment as a cloud passing through the sky. You might feel it hanging heavily over you now, but it's only a matter of time before it drifts away. This visualization reinforces the idea that emotions are temporary. They don't define you, and they will pass if you allow them to. Through cognitive distancing, you gain the ability to shift your perspective. Instead of being the person caught up in resentment, you become the observer of your own mind. This practice not only diffuses the power of negative emotions, but also gives you the clarity to make thoughtful, reasoned decisions. You might decide, for instance, to have a light-hearted conversation with your friend about how their oversight made you feel, or you might choose to let it go entirely, recognizing it's not worth the energy. Cognitive distancing is not about suppressing or ignoring your feelings. It's about welcoming them without becoming consumed by them. The next time resentment starts to take hold, step back, observe it, and remind yourself that you are the one in control, not the emotion. By doing this, you're practicing one of the most empowering tenets of Stoic philosophy, the ability to free yourself from the weight of emotions that no longer serve you. One of the most powerful tools in the Stoic toolbox is a practice known as negative visualization. At first blush, it might sound counterintuitive. Why would anyone intentionally imagine worst-case scenarios? But here's the paradox. By preparing your mind for adversity, you can actually reduce its emotional impact and increase your resilience. Negative visualization doesn't just help you manage fear or anxiety, it can also be an effective way to combat resentment. How? By stripping situations of their emotional weight and helping you reframe your expectations. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, was a strong advocate for this practice. He believed that mentally preparing ourselves for life's challenges helps us face them with calm acceptance when they arise. Seneca wrote, "A man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." In other words, when you've already imagined the possibility of something unpleasant happening, it loses its ability to shock or overwhelm you. This same mindset can be applied to resentment, which often stems from unexamined or unrealistic expectations of others. Let's take an example to bring this idea into focus. Imagine you've planned an important dinner party and invited a close group of friends. You've put a lot of effort into the evening, cooking, decorating, and making sure everything is perfect. But at the last minute, one of your closest friends cancels, citing a vague excuse. You feel the sting of disappointment and perhaps resentment creeping in. How could they not prioritize this? Don't they know how much effort I've put in? This is where negative visualization comes into play. Before the event, you could practice imagining scenarios where things don't go as planned. Picture one of your friends arriving late or even not showing up at all. Visualize how you might feel in that moment and how you'd respond. By doing this, you preemptively lower your expectations and prepare yourself for the reality that others' actions, or life itself, might not align with your desires. When you mentally acknowledge these possibilities ahead of time, they lose their ability to catch you off guard or stir resentment. Instead, you're able to accept them with grace and focus on enjoying the evening with the friends who **do* show up. Negative visualization isn't about pessimism or dwelling on the worst. It's about developing emotional flexibility, training your mind to handle life's imperfections without becoming overly attached to any specific outcome. Think of it like rehearsing a play. By running through various scenarios, you're better equipped to handle whatever unfolds, whether it goes according to script or not. Another example might involve a work situation. Let's say you're up for a promotion and feel confident you deserve it. But what if, instead of assuming everything will fall into place, you imagined an alternative outcome? Picture someone else getting the promotion and ask yourself, how would I cope? What would my next steps be? Visualizing this possibility doesn't mean you're resigning yourself to failure. It means you're reducing the emotional charge that would come if the outcome isn't what you'd hoped for. In the end, if the promotion doesn't come your way, you're less likely to feel resentment because you've already prepared your mind for that outcome. And if it does happen, well, it's a pleasant bonus. This practice is deeply liberating because it helps you detach from rigid expectations. By imagining outcomes that might initially seem unpleasant, you not only soften their emotional impact but also remind yourself that you can handle more than you think. There's a profound sense of empowerment in knowing that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. So the next time you feel resentment building, pause and ask yourself, what's the worst that could have happened here? Could I have prepared myself for this? By practicing negative visualization consistently, you'll find that situations lose their sting and you become more adaptable and grounded. As the Stoics teach us, adversity isn't something we should fear, it's something we should prepare for, and in doing so, we reclaim our peace of mind and free ourselves from the weight of resentment. What if you focused on what you have rather than what upset you? It's a simple question, but it holds the key to unraveling resentment and inviting peace back into your life. Gratitude, as the Stoics teach us, is one of the most powerful antidotes to bitterness. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on gratitude as a way to ground himself, reminding us to appreciate what we have, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. He urged us to not forget the blessings that are ours and to center our thoughts on what is good, rather than dwelling on perceived wrongs or misfortunes. So how does gratitude help dissolve resentment? At its core, resentment draws its strength from a sense of lack, from focusing on what someone took from us, what went wrong, or what we deserved but didn't receive. But gratitude flips this perspective entirely. While resentment keeps us anchored in what's missing, gratitude invites us to focus on what's already present, what's abundant, and what's going right in our lives. It creates a mental shift, pulling us out of an endless cycle of negativity and redirecting our attention to the positive aspects of our existence. Imagine this: you're upset because a friend didn't meet your expectations. Maybe they forgot an important milestone or didn't show up in the way you'd hoped. It's easy to dwell on how they let you down, replaying the scenario over and over in your mind. But what if instead you pause to reflect on the times they have been there for you? The laughter you've shared, the support they've offered in your challenging moments, or simply the joy of their companionship. Gratitude allows you to see the bigger picture, softening the edges of bitterness and reminding you that no relationship is perfect, but many are still deeply valuable. A practical way to bring gratitude into your life, especially when you're feeling weighed down by resentment, is to try a simple yet transformative exercise: a gratitude journal. Each evening, take a few moments to write down 3 things you're grateful for that day. They don't have to be grand or extraordinary. Something as small as a good cup of coffee, a kind word from a colleague, or even the warmth of the sun on your face is enough. Over time, this practice trains your mind to seek out the positive, even in the face of challenges. It's not about ignoring what's difficult or pretending everything is perfect, but about balancing the scales, about realizing that even amidst frustration, there's still so much to be thankful for. You can also take this one step further by applying it directly to the person or situation you're resenting. Ask yourself, what about this person or experience can I be grateful for? It might not be immediately obvious, especially if the hurt runs deep, but dig a little deeper. Maybe the situation taught you an important lesson about boundaries or resilience. Maybe it revealed something about yourself that you hadn't noticed before. Gratitude isn't always about joy, it's also about finding purpose and meaning, even in adversity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, when you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. Gratitude shifts our focus away from what we think we lack and back to the richness of what we already have. In doing so, it naturally counters the poison of resentment, which thrives on thoughts of deprivation and unfairness. Gratitude, in contrast, replenishes and restores. It reminds us that life is still full of beauty, even when it feels imperfect. So, the next time resentment begins to creep in, pause and ask yourself, what can I be grateful for right now? This small but powerful question has the ability to transform your mindset, dissolving the weight of bitterness and replacing it with a lighter, more contented state of mind. Gratitude is not just a fleeting emotion, it's a practice, a skill you cultivate over time, and one that holds the power to change the way you see both yourself and the world around you. Letting go of resentment isn't a one-time decision, it's a practice, something you need to work on daily to gradually reshape your mindset. The Stoics believed that just as repetitive exercise strengthens the body, consistent mental exercises strengthen the mind. Marcus Aurelius didn't become the calm, reflective thinker we admire overnight. His meditations, his private journals show us that he actively worked on this mindset every day. And the beauty of Stoic philosophy is that it doesn't demand perfection. It offers tools and practices you can integrate into your routine to make progress, little by little, toward a more peaceful, resentment-free life. One of the simplest yet most powerful Stoic practices is journaling. In the morning, you can use your journal to set your intentions for the day. Ask yourself, what is within my control today? Write it down. Maybe it's your attitude, your effort, or how you respond to challenges. Then, remind yourself of what is clearly outside your control. Maybe it's how others behave, the outcome of a project, or unexpected events. By clearly separating the two, you align yourself with the Stoic principle of focusing on what you can influence and letting go of what you cannot. This simple exercise helps you approach your day with clarity and resilience, reducing the emotional energy wasted on things beyond your power. At night, you can use your journal for a reflection practice. Marcus Aurelius himself did this, reviewing his thoughts and actions at the end of each day. Ask yourself a few questions. Did I let something outside my control disturb my peace today? How could I have handled it differently? What did I do well, and what can I improve tomorrow? By reflecting honestly but without self-criticism, you create a space to learn and grow from your experiences. Resentment often festers in the shadows of our minds. When you bring it into the light through reflection, it loses its grip on you. Another Stoic practice you can try is morning meditation on your priorities. Before your day begins, take a moment to sit quietly and remind yourself of what truly matters to you. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? What virtues do I want to embody? How can I prioritize my peace over my frustrations? This practice helps you stay grounded when challenges arise because you've already set your compass for the day. When you're clear about your values, kindness, patience, wisdom, it becomes easier to let go of grievances that don't align with the person you want to be. Stoics also practiced visualization techniques like imagining potential challenges or setbacks before they happened. This isn't about being pessimistic, it's about mentally preparing yourself so you're not caught off guard. For example, before a meeting or interaction with someone who's previously frustrated you, you might pause and think, how might they act today? How will I choose to respond if they say something I find unfair or unkind? By rehearsing your response in advance, you train yourself to maintain your composure and not be ruled by resentment in the moment. And here's something simple but profound you can do throughout the day. Pause and take a deep breath before reacting. The Stoics taught that between stimulus and response, there's a moment of choice, a moment where you can decide whether to act with wisdom or emotion. Use that moment when something stirs resentment in you. Pause, breathe, and remind yourself of what's in your control. That small act can make a world of difference. The common thread in all these practices is consistency. The Stoics understood that the mind is shaped by what we repeatedly do. Just as you wouldn't expect to get physically stronger from a single workout, you can't expect to master your emotions overnight. These practices are about showing up every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes, and making incremental progress toward a calmer, more centered life. So here's a challenge for you. Pick just one asterisk of these practices to try today. Maybe it's writing down what's in your control, reflecting on your day, or pausing before reacting. Commit to doing it, even if it feels small. Over time, those small steps will lead to big changes. Let today be the first of many days where you start to release resentment and reclaim your peace of mind. You have the tools, and now it's time to put them into action. Letting go of resentment isn't easy, but as we've explored throughout this video, the wisdom of Stoic philosophy offers powerful, practical tools to help us move forward. By focusing on what's in our control, we free ourselves from being held hostage by the actions or decisions of others. Through rational thinking, we learn to observe our emotions without letting them consume us, and by embracing gratitude, we shift our perspective to appreciate the good in our lives instead of dwelling on what's missing or unjust. The beauty of Stoicism is that it doesn't require you to be perfect or emotionless. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that nothing ever bothers you. Instead, it's about learning to respond with clarity and intention rather than reacting impulsively. It's about reclaiming your peace of mind one moment at a time. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simple yet profound reflection reminds us that true freedom comes from within, not from controlling the external world or forcing others to meet our expectations. As you reflect on what we've discussed, take a moment to think about the resentments you may be holding onto in your own life. Is there a person or situation that keeps replaying in your mind, stealing your energy and weighing you down? How might you begin to apply Stoic principles to release that burden? Could you focus on distinguishing what's within your control and what isn't? Could you reframe the situation through reason or practice gratitude for what this experience has taught you? These small steps may seem simple, but they hold the power to transform not only how you handle resentment, but how you approach life as a whole. Remember, letting go of resentment isn't something that happens overnight. It's a gradual process, one built on consistent effort and reflection. But with each step you take, you'll find yourself feeling lighter, freer, more present in your own life. And that's the ultimate goal, not to dwell on the past, but to live fully in the moment. If today's video resonated with you, I'd love to hear how you plan to start applying these Stoic ideas to your own life. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Maybe there's a specific resentment you'd like to let go of, or a Stoic principle that really spoke to you. And if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing it with someone who might benefit from this message. Together, we can all work toward living with more clarity, resilience, and peace. I'll leave you with one final thought, a timeless reminder from Marcus Aurelius. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. Start today, start now. Let go of what no longer serves you and take the first step toward the freedom that comes from within. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.